Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of the second season of Reflections of a Slightly Conscious Being. I'm Sandra Lourenco, a music artist that is on a journey towards consciousness. I am not a licensed psychologist, therapist, or coach. All information I share here comes from personal experience and doesn't mean to replace, by any means, any kind of professional help. So today we are going to talk about reminiscing. And if you don't know what reminiscing means, it means to look back, to remember a period in our lives, to be nostalgic, and to relive memories. Before we dive in, some of you have asked, how do I come up with these themes that I show up for you guys here every week? Truth is, they come to me in several ways. I don't overthink it. I don't spend time collecting ideas. I just let the themes come to me. So about this week's theme, here's the story behind it. So a few weeks ago, I was in France working with The Sides, which is a band I'm part of. We are working on our very first album. So we were in the studio recording stuff, and then we were rehearsing for the 2 live shows we did during my stay there. So our last show was in Ariège. Ariège is a region in France right next to the Pyrenees. And we got there early, so the guys needed to set up things, put the drum kit and set up the sound. And basically, I was just there killing time till there was everything ready for the sound check. So I decided to go for a walk and check out the town on my own. There was a flea market going on, so I went there. I was checking the antiques. And then on the right side, I start noticing there was like this very old Roman bridge, really small. And the road that led to the middle of the countryside, there was a forest. And then on the left side of the road, I saw this silhouette behind the trees. It looked like a really old building in ruins. And I noticed there was a tower, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a castle there. I need to check it out. So I followed the old road, and there it was. Oh my gosh, like this amazing, magnificent old castle. I always had, and I have a fascination for old abandoned buildings. It's something that's part of me. I feel a mix of emotions every time I'm in the presence of these buildings. You must recall my video clip of Prisão de Sonhos, which is on an abandoned monastery. So I do have a huge fascination for old abandoned buildings. I think it's a mix with there's amazement, there's this decadent beauty, right? And then there's sadness because it's in ruins, and also enthusiasm for what it would look like if you restore it. There's a part of me, I think it's the engineering part of me, that, oh my gosh, we could do this and that. And I start seeing all the possibilities that an old abandoned building has. So I noticed there was a door on the right side. So I decided to follow the road so I could get in and explore more of the castle. When I got to the castle door, which was a huge gate, by the way, there were people there. There was this family with a small girl. She was probably 2-3 years old, and I'm really sorry, but I'm really bad at giving the right age to kids. Sorry. They're kids. I don't know their age. Anyway, as soon as they saw me, they started speaking to me in French. I don't speak French very well. I understand a couple of things, and but I understood that they were pointing at the vegetation. And there was this huge snake resting in the vegetation. They were all just looking at it. And I answered back in English so that they could understand that, I'm sorry, my French is not very good. But we exchanged smiles, and that is kind of universal language everywhere. So we all stood there admiring this beautiful snake. And as we stood there, the small girl, at first she was a bit shy. She was looking at me, but she wasn't giving me much. Well, she was giving me attention, but she was behind her mom's legs. And then out of nowhere, she started talking to me, and she looked really concerned. It's like she had something she wanted to tell me, but she was speaking to me in French and really quick. I couldn't understand anything she was saying. I really tried. Then her mom tried to help as well. acting as a translator. But even her mom couldn't understand what she was trying to explain or what she was trying to say. All I got while the mom was talking to her, like, what do you want to say to what do you want to say to the young lady? And I understood the word école. École means school in French. That was the only word I understood. And her mom just looked at me. I'm sorry, I can't understand what she's saying. I'm really sorry. And they went away. But even, her mom was dragging her. She was just pointing at me and trying really urgently to communicate something. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really want to know what she wanted to tell me. Kids, you may think they talk nonsense, but I do believe they still are connected, and they still are this unfiltered version. They are very raw. And so I felt there was an urgency there, that she wanted to pass me something, to tell me something, and she couldn't, and she was frustrated because she couldn't. And I really wanted to understand also. So I just stayed there and I looked at the castle. Unfortunately, I couldn't get in. The castle had a private property sign, and the gate was pretty much the only functional thing on that castle. So it's always funny to me how people can own these amazing, magnificent ruins, don't do anything with them. But the very first thing they do is just fix the door and fix a fence so no one can get in, and then put a sign that it's private property, don't get in. Anyway, I felt there was this kind of message for me there, and I didn't get it straight away. But I did stay there for a while looking at it, and I did a small meditation, and I wrote something that, to be honest, I was writing it and I was like, I think this is it, but I think I'm not getting it. Anyway, I wrote, life's a school. One must honor the learnings of the past, but without fear of starting everything all over again. Let go of what was and do better each time. Next day, I was killing time before my flight. So after the show, I had to check out of the hotel around 11 a.m. and my flight was at 10 p.m. I did that so I could have the whole day just for me and to cruise around Toulouse. I haven't, all 2 weeks I spent there, we were in the studio or working or doing stuff. So I was just cruising the streets, nowhere to go, just enjoying the sun. And I got a text message from a friend of mine. And he's one of those friends that disappears but always comes back from time to time. So we check in, and every time we catch up, we spend like 1 or 2 hours on the phone. We love talking with each other. But that's kind of our dynamics. We spend months without talking to each other, and then, let's catch up, and we talk, and we love catching up. And it doesn't matter. It works for both of us. I always feel I love talking with him. I love our conversations. I feel he feels the same. So that's all that matters. It's our dynamic. Anyway, he sends me a message saying, hey, you want to catch up? But we have to catch up one of these days. How have you been? Things like something like that. And I'm like, well, I'm not busy right now. I'm free. So you want to make a call? Let's catch up now. And he was free as well. So we spent 1 hour or something in the phone, catching up on each other's lives and talking about our challenges, our wins, our losses, what's up. And as we're talking, eventually the conversation, and this usually happens when I talk with him, usually the conversation slides to those times when we were on a band together about 5-6 years ago, and we were working on an album. But one of the members of the band who wanted, and he was actually supposed to do the mix and the master of the album, he kept letting us down. He basically wouldn't do anything, but wouldn't give up on the recordings that we've done previously, and let anyone else do it either. So we were basically stuck. We invested a lot of time writing these songs, composing these songs, recording these songs. We even went to a recording studio when we paid for it. All of us paid for it. And then this guy kept all the recordings, saying, yes, I will be the one mixing and mastering them. And half a year later, he still hasn't done anything. So, but he keeps saying, oh, but I want to do it. But all these things he never had the time. And we talked about not having the time on the previous episode, right? He was just not prioritizing the work, but he wasn't letting go either. So we were pretty much stuck on this thing. In my case, what I did was I basically walked away. I mean, I said, okay, I've done my part. I recorded vocals. I can't do anything as long as we're stuck on this situation. So if you guys want to move forward, you know where to find me. Just reach out to me. Well, after 6 years, they never reached out to me. So basically, I focused on my solo album, Somewhere in the Crowd. And the other members, including this friend of mine, just carried on with their lives and other musical projects. But my friend, he had a really, really hard time letting go. He invested a lot of time and energy on that project. I did too, but for me, it was easier. I do feel, since I had other projects going on and I had my solo project as well, and I had been on a band before, so I've dealt with this kind of situations before. So for me, it was easier to understand that, okay, this is not going anywhere, so might as well let go. It's out of my hands now anyway, so let me just focus on the other things I have going on for me. My friend didn't have anything else musically speaking, so for him, and it was his first experience with something that like this, a band that didn't follow through. So it was really, really hard for him. And years later, he would still talk about how things have gone differently, how things could have gone differently than they did. Like, we could have finished that album, and if we finished that album, who knew what would happen? Maybe we could have toured the country, maybe we would have been successful, maybe if we have done things differently, maybe this, maybe that. Anyway, many times I indulged in this type of conversations with my friend. I do have a great memory, so this can be both a blessing and a curse. I remember the past vividly and with great detail, and this means that I can go back to it, I can relive it, I can reminisce it, and even feel emotions I felt in specific situations. But as I was talking to my friend, I remembered the message from the castle and that little girl. And this time, I understood it. I saw it under a different light. It sounded like a warning this time. Not as much as a reflection as the very first time I heard it. I understood it in a way that it's a warning. There's a very thin line between healthy reminiscing and obsessive behavior. And I felt that warning. I felt those emotions. I felt those warning lights as soon as my friend said, oh, I wish I could go back to those times. Wish I could go back in time and just relive those moments where I had this, where I had that, where I did this or I did that. So when I first saw that castle, now going back to the previous day, because this was just one day after the other, I thought how amazing that castle would look like if restored, right? But as I looked at it again, after hearing that message, I understood that part of the fascination of old buildings, and especially of that castle, is exactly because it's in the state it is. It's because it's abandoned. It's because it's decaying. There's an incompleteness to it. And incompleteness brings possibilities. It's like an unfinished project, right? But let's be honest now. I mean, if you were starting from scratch nowadays, would you build it the same way? I mean, would you build a castle for yourself? I mean, of course not, right? Because construction is more advanced now. It knows better. Besides, do you really need a castle? I mean, I'm sure it sounds amazingly in your head, but practically speaking, it's not very practical, right? And probably not adapted to your own personal needs today. I mean, it made sense on its prime when it was built, and it was built on the 12th century. That's what I found about it. You can search more on Wikipedia. Anyway, enough parables. Let's stop talking about castles and constructions and all of that, and let's get to the point. So I used to talk and reminisce about the past a lot. I have friends with whom I shared some past experience with, and when we get together, we do talk a lot about those times. I think it's natural, and I think it can be fun to relive those moments, especially if you are in a group of people that were on those moments together, because each member, and this is an interesting detail about human beings, we all recall different aspects and different details in different ways. So each member remembers the same event differently and paid attention to different things. And so everyone adds a specific detail you didn't remember. And when we're talking about those specific times, it's like now you know something that you didn't even remember or didn't even pay attention. And now you know one extra detail that you can add to your memory. So during the past weeks, the past 2 weeks, I had these experiences with old friends whom I got together with. It was not just this friend that I talked about. There was other experiences. And I started noticing this pattern. I started noticing that these friends, they talk about their past with a lot more excitement than they talk about their present or even their future. Some of them are not even happy or excited about their present life situations for one reason or another. It doesn't matter. I do feel some resent some choices they made that led to their present lifetimes or life situations. But truth is, they are not actually doing anything about it. They feel trapped and with no way out, without control of their present lives. And so, in a way, talking about their past experiences or better times is a kind of oasis, retreat, or even refuge. So, I read once that young people tend to look forward to, worry, or talk about their future more, and old people tend to look back, relive, or talk about their past more. It's all a kind of refuge, though, isn't it? So I've spoken before about the importance of living in the now or present time. This was on episode 16, very last episode of season 1. And I do want to add that remembering the past is essential for your evolution as a human being, okay? That's what makes it possible to learn and grow. You learn from your mistakes, you learn to do something better and better, and life becomes easier because you become a better manager, right? Think about it. I mean, things that were huge challenges somewhere in your past now are something you do every day and don't even think about it. Once you learned how to walk, you learned how to read, you learned how to talk, how to count, how to use a computer, how to use the internet, and those things that now you take for granted, and you don't even have to think about it when you're doing. They come automatically. It's because you remember your past. You remember your past learnings, even if it's just in an unconscious way. When you remember your past in a conscious way, you can also become aware of your patterns and traumas. This makes growth and healing possible too. I have, for example, now talking about me, one of my patterns is I do have a savior complex. I tend to try to save everyone around me. I feel responsible for everyone around me. So this can come out in a bad light because trying to save others can also mean that I think I know better than others. It also means I have a tendency to obsess about other people's problems and finding ways to fix them. And I know this because I remember.
I stand here without fear because I remember. I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me.
I remember being the adult child, which is the child that assumes the role of the parent of their own parents. I remember surrounding myself with people who I thought I could save or help in one way or another. And this is because it's familiar for me. But being familiar doesn't mean it's healthy. And people don't want to be saved. This is the truth. People don't want to be saved. People, in fact, cannot be saved in most cases. People need to learn how to save themselves. They need to realize how to save themselves because they're the only ones who can do it for them. And this is huge, okay? And if you have a savior complex, this is exactly what you need to learn, is that you are not responsible for anyone else, okay? You are only responsible for yourself. Me remembering this, me remembering my past experiences, allowed me to realize I have this pattern, which in turn allowed me to learn from it, allowed me to move past, to grow from it, and to move past it. It allowed me to heal and to evolve as a human being. And this resulted, in my case, in deeper connections, in more satisfying connections. People, I do feel they feel more comfortable around me now because I don't try to save them. Because this can also lure people away. It can be really frustrating for people when they turn to you as a friend just to vent about their problems, and their friend is into fixing mode, which is with what I usually try to do. And I'm aware that I have this tendency of trying to, oh, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. People sometimes don't want solutions. They just want to vent. They just want to talk about their problems. And they just, what they need from you is a safe space for that. And sometimes they are not focusing on solutions. And sometimes it's just as easy as ask, okay? Someone comes to you with a problem, you can ask them, okay, what are you looking for with me right now? Do you want me to help you find a solution? Or you are just frustrated and you want to vent, you just want to talk about your problem, and that's totally okay. Whatever you choose, I'm your friend and I'm here for you. So it's just as easy as that. Sometimes we just enter into solution or fixing mode and we think we're being helpful and we're not. So this is one of my learnings from the past. And I do feel that's also why most psychologists want you to tell your story. They want you to relive your past because they know while you're doing it, while you're reliving, while you're reminiscing about your past, you'll also gain awareness about yourself, especially when you're sharing your past with a guide, with someone, with a specialist that will guide you in the right way while you're at it, okay? When he will get you, a good psychologist will catch you when you are just reliving a pattern, but you're not seeing it under the right light. And he or she will guide you and will make you aware of something that you're actually saying. But this is also where traditional psychology fails or lets you down, because traditional psychology aims at finding the label that fits you. So to make the unconscious conscious, which is the first step actually. But yes, you go there, you do some sessions, and then, oh, okay, they got to the conclusion that you have depression. Okay, so you are depressive. Or they get to the conclusion that you have an obsessive or neurotic behavior. It doesn't matter. These are all labels. Going back to my example. So I would go to stand-up psychology and I would get to the conclusion that I have a savior complex. I know where it comes from. I just explained it. But I also know how it affects my personality and my relationships and my choices. And now what? How do I break out of it? How do I move past this? And this is where standard psychology fails. And it failed for me. It failed also. I have some other friends that have done standard therapy, conventional therapy, and they've done it for years. They tried different psychologists, and they all get to the same conclusion. Okay, I know I have these patterns, but I have no idea how to break free from them. And the psychologist is not offering a solution either. So truth is, and that's what worked for me, to find these answers, you need to change tactics. So you need to grow your awareness. And this is something that goes beyond standard psychology. For this step, it's not healthy to relive your past anymore, because the answer isn't there. You're trying to learn something new. So the answer, it's in your present and in your future, is not in keep analyzing your past. So So far, we talked about how reminiscing can be healthy, right? It can help you learn, it can help you grow, and it can help you become aware of your patterns and traumas. Now, let's talk about when you cross that thin line and go into unhealthy reminiscing. So, when the past becomes an obsession. So, for this, I want to ask you a couple of questions. You can note them down, okay? This is not something that you probably have the answer right away, something for you to think about. So, how much time per day do you spend thinking about your past? Or when you're with friends, how much time do you guys spend talking about your past experiences? How is your past situation compared to your present life situation? What's better? What's worse? I mean, it cannot be all better. It cannot be all worse. But just try to make this balance and understand how much time do you spend with your past. So when you're doing these exercises and answering these questions, don't forget, okay, this is very important, be aware that what we remember is not exactly what happened, okay? We all see reality through the filter of our own humanity. That includes our beliefs, traumas, past experiences, and what we were taught. So let me give you an example. If you had a traumatic experience with a dog, okay, or even if you haven't had a traumatic experience, but your parents have have taught you to fear dogs. They wanted you to be careful around dogs, and they ended up being extremely or excessively cautious, and you end up developing a fear of dogs. You can have a tendency of seeing all dogs in a bad light. Dogs will definitely feel this vibe for you. And so you have a higher probability of being attacked by dogs. So this is actually proof, if you think of it, this is proof of how your beliefs and past experiences can shape your present reality if you don't learn and heal from them. So, more questions for you to think about. Where do you spend more time? Thinking about your past, about your present, or about your future? So if you're not sure, you can get there by analyzing your current feelings or the feelings you feel the most, okay? Because like I mentioned, these things have a tendency of repeating themselves if you don't heal. So if you're grieving, if you're resentful about something or someone, if you feel guilt for something you've done or for something you failed to do, if you feel regret, these are all emotions associated with unhealthy past reminiscing, okay? You're focusing on something that cannot be changed because it's in the past. There's nothing wrong about feeling these emotions, okay? Emotions are warning signs. Even though warning signs are usually associated with something bad, because no one likes to see warning lights on their dashboards, they exist to prevent something worse from happening. When they light up, you become conscious of something, you become aware of something, and so you can take action to prevent something worse from happening in the future, right? And okay, yeah, I'm going back to car analogies. You know me.
Your check engine light is on.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, that's an indicator to, check your engine.
It's fine. It's been on for like a month.
Well, actually, that would be all the more reason to, check your engine.
So you get a low fuel warning on your car. You can choose to stop at the next gas station, right? Or you can choose to ignore it and run out of gas in the middle of nowhere, which is a very, very worst scenario, right? So same thing about emotions. Grieving involves many different emotions, but they all circle around one central subject: denying or not accepting your current life situation, okay? When you're grieving, you're not accepting the death of someone or the loss of something, which is also the name of the last stage of grieving, acceptance, right? And about the stages of grieving, I talk about that in episode 7 and episode 8 in the first season, okay? Anyway, When you're grieving, you're focused on your past situation when you had that person or that something in your life, right? Guilt, regret, resentment, these are all emotions that warn you that you are giving too much attention on something that happened in your past. Okay? This can be something that was done to you or that you've done to someone or something that someone or you failed to do and feel it should have done. You have a choice, okay? You can do something about it now or you can ignore it. And if you ignore them, if you ignore these warning signs, if you ignore these emotions, they will keep coming back to you in one way or another, okay? If you ignore your fear of dogs, going back to the previous example, life will keep putting dangerous dogs in front of you or seemingly dangerous dogs in front of you because dogs will react to your fear, okay? And if you face your fear, if you choose to do something about it, if you go, okay, this is affecting my life, I need to do something before it gets worse, before I get seriously attacked. So I will face my fear of dogs. I can go to a dog therapy center. There are specialists that can help you if this is your case. So you can face your fear, and then by facing your fear, you can start building your way out. So in this case was, okay, I will get help. I cannot do this alone. I will get help, and I will face my fear of dogs. Facing your emotions doesn't mean fighting or repressing them. Doesn't mean denying. It's not about denying, okay? If denying is a form of fighting, is a form of running away. Facing your emotions, the way I see it, it means becoming aware of them, okay? Finding healthy ways of releasing the excess energy they create, okay? And you can do this by doing physical exercise, creating art. Music for me is one of my big emotional escapes. After you release that extreme energy, you can go back into action mode. And I've said this before, don't go into action mode while you still have all that excess energy. You will not be able to do anything productive, okay? Release the energy first and then go into action mode, okay? And what can you do about the situation in the present moment? This is so important. Don't dwell about, oh, if this, if that. I mean, focus on the present because that's the only time you can act. That's the only time you can do something about it, all right? So can you even do something about it in the present moment? Because if not, and this is what happens in most cases, there's nothing you can do about it. In the case of grieving, there's nothing you can do about it. If a person died, there was a loss. I mean, accept it. So there's nothing you can do in the present situation. So it means that all that's left for you to do is to accept the situation as is and stop dwelling in the past. Finally, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling anxious, nervous, or fearful, it can mean you're focused in the future in an obsessive way, all right? But this is a theme for another time, okay? Today we're talking about focusing in the past. If you think about your current life situation exclusively, okay, your present time, what's going on in your life right now, your life is probably not that bad, right? Well, hopefully you have food, you have shelter, you have water, you have your basic needs covered for today and more. You have friends, you have loved ones, you have a lot of activities you can do. Unfortunately, for our minds, the present can become boring. And be aware, okay, going back, referencing last week's episode, be aware of our tendency to overthink. So our minds get bored in the present moment, so we start reminiscing about the past or worrying about our future. This is a natural tendency of all human beings. Now, going back to my question, is reminiscing about the past healthy? As always, the answer, I have a friend who says the answer for everything is maybe. And so I'll say, maybe. It depends. Are you learning from it? Are you stuck in endless cycles of scenarios that could have been? Are you living more in the past than in the now? Once again, it's all about balance. All right. For this, again, the answer is not in your past. The answer is in your present moment. Are you present in your present moment? Are you making new memories, or are you just focused on your old ones? Going back to the castle and the school parable. I'm sorry, I'm bad with that word. Going back to the castle and the school parable. I'm sure you have great memories about your school times, right? I'm sure if you ever go back to one of those schools where you went to, you'll feel nostalgic about those times. But does that mean you're going back to that school to study? Of course not, right? It wouldn't make sense. You learned what you needed to learn there. You moved on to a more advanced school, and this can be having a job, having a work is the most advanced school of all. But it's only possible that you go to this more advanced school because you went to that more basic school in the past, right? So every school, every lesson you learn, every memory made you into the person you are today. But the person you are today will not be the same tomorrow. Where and what you come from, your past, doesn't define you. It can help you understand who you are and what you're coming from. But in the end, you have the mighty, and this is the almighty power to choose where you're going and who you're becoming every single second of your life.
Choice. The problem is choice.
In every small action, there's a choice. And with each choice, you grow and you choose to be who you are. And every choice happens now, in the present, not in the past. And that's all. I hope this episode was helpful to you. As always, feel free to comment, like, share, reach out, and all of that. My email is mail@sandralourenco.pt. All right, guys, see you next week.